You're the most cold-blooded man I've ever seen.
How can you have any meat if you don't eat your pudding?
The Tommy Boyds Show.
Back to the left. Yeah.
The show with more endurance than radiation itself.
You say either, and I say either.
Apparently official.
Stand by, please.
Tommy Boyds.
Apparently official.
Have you no compassion?
Stand by, please.
Let's rehang the pictures from the gallery of life.
There's no escaping here.
Tommy Boyds.
Yeah, good morning and welcome to a packed programme. Later in the show, Street Beat Symphony turns its attention to yet another important issue in connection with transport, health and safety today. We also have the second edition of Listeners' Letters. That's in about half an hour. We open the mailbag and take a look and take a listen at what people who've been kind enough to drop us a line at this show have to say. In the second hour of the programme, we're going to be recruiting your help, if you can get to a telephone, to steer us towards, on this show, yet another award. But we kick off with something that came to my attention when I opened the paper this morning, and I'm more in the habit these days of opening in the middle of the paper. You know, when you're a boy, you read the front page because you want to know what's going on, or at least what, you think might be going on. And then as you get a bit older, you start at the back with the sport, and you work your way forward. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a bit shell-shocked with everything that's going on in the world, so I thought it would be safer to open in the middle. And there, sure enough, there was an article about Paul McCartney. Now, what could possibly be safer? What's least likely to put you off your breakfast, or at least throw your train of thought out of kilter, or provide you with a range of images which you know you're never going to be able to erase from the portfolio of memories in your brain? What's least likely to do that than Paul McCartney? So one's eyes come to rest on this paragraph. I'm not going to read it, I'll paraphrase it. You don't want all the gory details, but it's this. Paul McCartney, when he was just about to go into the army, okay, I didn't know he was in the army, but he was, apparently, was very worried that he'd show himself up because he'd been unable to kill a man. I know. It's extraordinary, isn't it? So, in order to get himself into the swing of things, he used to go into some woods near where he lived and kill frogs. And he killed a great many frogs. The newspaper piece doesn't explain how, thankfully, because I think we're right up to our limit, aren't we? Just with dealing with all of this. So you put your paper down and you finish your soldiers and your toast, and but then it's there with you all day. So I just wondered if we shouldn't kick that around now that I've burdened you with that set of thoughts. Free call 0500 10 53 89. I find myself blowing in the wind when it comes to animal rights and how we as a species, the humans, us men and women, should treat animals. I went through a pink period like I think a lot of people do. It was a girlfriend who got me there. She was very hot on animal rights, and so I found myself going on marches, saving whales, being vehement about fox hunting, cluing up on animal testing. Let's take animal testing, for example. I mean, you just don't know what you think. Once you've got children, you do know that the last thing you want on earth is to be able to go into a supermarket and buy a product and not know what it's going to do if it gets into your children's eyes. Because I'm sorry, our own nearest and dearest are dearest. And I'm afraid I do care more about my children than I do about a rabbit. That's being honest. It's not very fashionable still. Well, I think the pendulum is swinging the other way, because I think certain aspects of the animal rights movement have got a little bit out of hand. Don't you? Free call 0500 10 53 89. Of course, they're muddled, you see. They're muddled. I think their heart's in the right place, many of them. But some animal rights people aren't so much concerned with their love for animals as their hatred for people. That's a fact. I feel that's a fact. That gets in the way sometimes of what might otherwise be pretty halfway decent good work. Free call 0500 10 53 89. They're muddled. They can't settle this question. If you go to try and disrupt a fox hunt in order to save a fox, but you kill 500 flies and mozzies on the windscreen of your battered car getting there, right? But don't save a fox. Was it worthwhile? Because 500 insects died needlessly on your windscreen and no good was done. You see what I'm saying? They can't settle that argument. They can't settle this argument. Do sperm feel pain? Because if they do, you see, then that's God or Mother Nature who's created a situation whereby, even if there is a successful impregnation, 10,000 of the poor little things are going to die a horrible death, in pain, so drown, or whatever happens to them, or die of exhaustion. Free call 0500 10 53 89. But let's kick animal testing around, and let's put our hands on our heart. Let's be honest with this one. No more campaigning. Let's be honest. First of all, aren't you glad it's done if you've got children? Because, you know, you want them to be as safe as possible. Aren't you glad it's animals and not you? You know? That's what I say. Animal testing. It's not me, is it? You know? Animals, there's plenty of them. They can make as many as they need. Animals are not particularly clever. I'll pay £1,000 to anybody who can tell me, right, when it was that animals actually split the atom. Or put a rabbit on the moon. Free call 0500 10 53 89. They only test stuff that has to be tested on animals. Dangerous stuff. Drugs and chemicals and bleach and things like that. And these things are dangerous and they are largely necessary. And you just wouldn't want them in the shops unless you knew that everything reasonable had been done. Everything else gets tested. They tested the nuclear bomb before they dropped it on Hiroshima, didn't they? They made sure that it would create just the right amount of carnage. No more, no less. They tested that. Everything gets tested. You get tested. I get tested. Sitting GCSEs is just as painful as having shampoo in your eyes, isn't it? Free call 0500 10 53 89. And humans are animals too. People volunteer for tests. People have drugs tested on themselves. They get paid for it. Have they ever tested marijuana on dogs? That's just the last thing that comes leaping into my mind on the subject. Have they? I know they test smoking on beagles, but have they ever tested marijuana on dogs? And if so, what did they find out? And how were they able to measure whatever it did for the dogs? Our number again is free call 0500 10 53 89. I'm Tommy Boyd, and this is Talk Radio. There's a good argument for listening.
Elsa's in the kitchen.
Hey, girls, why not phone up Tommy now and tell him what a jug-headed, peanut-brained, weasel-faced, fourth-magnitude misfit from the 70s he is on free call 0500 10 53 89. No, we're just going to have a measured discussion this afternoon. It's a Thursday. George has been kind enough to call from West Sussex. Welcome to Talk Radio, George.
Hi.
Afternoon.
How you doing?
Good, yourself?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
You're kicking animals around this hour.
Yeah, I gathered, yeah. And I was sort of sitting here, tidying the house like you do on an afternoon when you've got nothing better to do.
As you should.
Yeah, and you said that animals can't split the atom.
No.
So you're presuming that because we split the atom, we're therefore quite intelligent. Now, the question I wanted to ask you, Tommy, was how do you define an animal's intelligence? Because they can't speak to us.
No. Well, you can measure it with your own eyes, can't you?
Well, can we?
Yeah.
How?
By looking.
But how do we know it? How do we know that, Tommy? We don't, do we?
Well, we don't know anything if you want to play that game, George, but sometimes you've got to make your mind up, and you've got a good mind, and you know that you're cleverer than your dog.
Sometimes I don't know if I actually am. My dog has senses which, I don't understand. So this is what I'm saying to you. Define the intelligence of an animal. We're only defining it by our own measure, by what we compartmentalise everything with.
Yeah.
With our own intelligence.
Yeah.
So, where are you going with this? Have you actually thought about the fact that animals have an intelligence far beyond
No, they don't.
our own?
They don't.
Do you have an animal?
I was a professional animal trainer for 2 years.
Were you?
Yes.
What
do you mean,
Well, I just wondered if that was really the case, because I know sometimes you do come out with things.
You accusing me of lying?
No, I'm not accusing you of lying. Maybe exaggerating the truth a little bit.
I'd be very careful if I were you. For 2 years, I was a dolphin trainer. I trained dolphins, seals, and sea lions. I've also worked with horses professionally as a race rider. I don't know if you know what that is.
No, I don't.
A work rider.
Right.
I work ride race horses. Okay. which, I mean, gives one at least an anecdotal authority, wouldn't you say?
Not necessarily, because you're still working with the animals in your capacity.
Now, back up a second. It gives you an anecdotal authority.
Not necessarily.
No. To hell with this. You just rung up for an argument. I'm trying to get somewhere. Yes, necessarily.
No, I didn't ring up for an argument, actually.
What I'm saying is I've seen it with my own eyes, and that's all I'm saying.
But that's your point of view, isn't it?
Yes, I know that. I'm not saying anything more than that. Although I don't think you'll find many people who aren't daft as a brush who think that animals are intelligent as we are.
I'm not saying that animals are more intelligent than us or less intelligent than us. What I'm saying to you is have a look at their intelligence, explore it. Just because we can split the atom, what can an animal do that we can't do? There are different kinds of intelligence here. They don't talk to us. They don't communicate with us on our level. So how the hell...
You don't even know what the word intelligence means, technically.
Oh, okay.
It's clear.
Fine.
So I'll just fill you in. It means the bringing together of knowledge. Now, what knowledge does your dog have?
My dog, which I don't have, by the way, but I'm using this as an analogy, seeing as you used it. My dog, let's say my cat is easier because I do have a cat, has the ability to go out and hunt. It has senses. It has... Oh, I'm stuck for words because I'm nervous because I'm on the radio.
Don't worry about it. Let's make an important distinction here. Your cat hasn't acquired any knowledge. That knowledge was there in its DNA when it was born. That's true, isn't it?
To a certain extent,
No,
yes.
steady,
But when it was born, it had to learn how to do these things. It had to find the best way to do it, the quickest way to do it.
Can your cat solve abstract problems?
Sorry?
Can your cat solve abstract problems? You see, listen, thanks for your call, George, but I've got to press on. This is the crucial difference, if you like, if you care to define the difference between humans and animals in terms of intelligence. I mean, it's all flipping obvious, isn't it, really? You know, but there's people like George, how do you define? What are your terms? Humans can solve abstract problems, and according to the Swiss educationalist Jean Piaget, all of us are able to solve abstract problems. That's things that aren't actually in front of us. We solve them in our mind. We imagine them. We go through them in our minds. It can be a curse, but it can be a blessing. But we can solve abstract problems. That is the crucial difference between humans and animals. An animal can't think of a problem that might be about to happen until it does. We do. A lot of us don't do much else. So we're that much more intelligent than animals. Otherwise they'd be testing us, wouldn't they? That's what we're talking about. We're talking about whether or not we can test animals. And now that I've got children, I can't see so much wrong with it as I used to. A quick word with Trudy, who calls from Hove. Welcome, Trudy.
Oh, hello. Yes. Welcome to you too. How are you? All right? Hello?
Yes?
Yes, I'm just interested in what you just now said about animals having no intelligence. Well, they have got an awful lot of feelings because they're going to blow up the chimney on Saturday morning, and there are still animals flying about who are still, obviously, they still have their nests inside. So they have got a lot of feelings because they have been having a very bad time flying round and round that chimney because they do know that something is going to happen and that they are not going to be there for much longer. But they're still nesting in there.
Well, that's pretty stupid, isn't it? I mean, if they know something's going to happen, why the heck don't they
because they've got feelings, just like we have feelings. And I don't think it is right that chimney should be knocked down on Saturday morning with those animals still nesting inside. Because if there weren't any more nestings in there, the animals wouldn't be there.
I know, but you inhaled just now, Trudy, didn't you? And you probably inhaled and killed an awful lot of free-fall bacteria.
In which way?
In your windpipe.
Well, I'm having problems anyway with my chest around here.
Yeah, well. Free call 0500 10 53 89. The issue this afternoon is animal testing. And do we forgive Paul McCartney for practicing being a soldier before he joined the army by killing frogs? I'm Tommy Boyd. This is Talk Radio. There is a good argument for listening.
It's time to poison the water hole.
Cutting edge.
Tommy Boyd sucks less.
You know, I don't want to bring this up, but you've been treating a lot of people with a lot of disrespect.
Still to come on the show, Street Beat Symphony. We debut our award entrance, and we also have listeners' letter page. We're discussing, as a result of Paul McCartney's revelation that he used to practice being a good soldier by killing frogs, we're discussing animal testing. I mean, you know, should you care? It's not you, is it? That's the main thing. Chris calls from London. Chris, you're on Talk Radio.
Yes,
Hello.
good afternoon, Tommy. I think it's cruel and cowardly to experiment on animals. And look at thalidomide. That was experimented on animals, I believe, but it didn't have the same application towards people. And the same with cancer experiments, that the results from animals often don't have the same results with people. And I don't think it's weak not to want to kill a man. I think that's brave. Because in peacetime, if you go out and kill somebody, it's murder.
I'm sorry, you're racing along here. Chris, try and put some breath pauses to suggest full stops. So are you talking about Paul McCartney at this point?
Well, yes, anybody.
Well, Paul McCartney killed frogs so that he'd be better at killing people when he joined the army, according to the newspapers.
Well, what's so great or brave about killing people? Does that make somebody brave?
I don't know. Did you read yesterday that Edward Heath had to run a firing squad to kill a Polish soldier just after the Second World War?
Well, I think that's sad.
Well, yes, so did he. The soldier and the other the Pole and Edward Heath himself and the other soldiers too. But you see, if you're in the army, Chris, you don't get a chance to sit down and have a good old chat about what goes on. You do as you're told.
I know, but I mean, in World War I and World War II, conscientious objectors were branded cowards.
Yes, and shot sometimes.
Yes,
yeah.
but they were actually brave.
Okay, so you're in the trenches then, all right? It's 1916. Can you play football?
Sort of.
Oh, well, we won't make it Christmas then. We'll do something else. You're in the trenches, and you are told to charge, fix bayonets, and you're going over the top, and you're going to try and kill a German. Now, if you do that, you'll either A, kill some Germans, or B, get killed yourself, or C, refuse and be shot. So which would you have done?
Well, I believe at Christmas in 19-something, between 1914 and 1918, that the Germans and British actually stopped over Christmas Day and actually did play football and didn't shoot each other. But I think that there's something wrong with the concept of war.
No, but what would you do? Of course you do, but everybody does. But
well, I would hope I wouldn't be in that position.
Well, no, but you are. That's the name of the game. You are in that position. Like a lot of frightened young men of the time, you are now in that position. What do you do?
Well, I don't know, because I can't predict. All I know is that lots of men came back very frightened and with mental problems because they witnessed such carnage.
Look, we know all that. What we don't know, but which we want to know, is what you do.
I don't know, because I haven't been in that position, so I can't say I would do something, because maybe I would do something else.
Have you got an imagination?
Well, I would hope that I wouldn't kill somebody, because I think animals and people deserve...
We were just saying that the difference between animals and people is that people can solve abstract problems, and I'm giving you an abstract problem, and it's not difficult to solve, is it? What would you do, A, B, or C? Try and kill some Germans, get shot yourself, or refuse to do anything and get hauled up before a court-martial and shot by Edward Heath or somebody?
C, maybe.
C, maybe.
Tommy, you back up.
Francis calls from Wigan. Francis, we'll speak to Francis after James in Belfast. You're on Talk Radio, James.
Hello.
Sir.
Righty, you mentioned something about animals not being able to think abstractly and thus deal with any future problems. And I'm wondering then, how do you explain the phenomenon whereby animals would run away from, say, earthquake zones or an oncoming hurricane?
They don't.
They do.
They don't.
They do.
They don't.
They do.
They don't. They just don't.
Yes, they do.
Where did you find that out from?
I've seen it.
You've seen it. Which earthquake was this then?
I don't know. The Americans, they just make up names for them, don't they?
No, that's hurricanes, you fool. You complete fool.
I don't know. It's one of those ones in America. They have them all.
I've got the website address. Are you on the web?
Yes, unfortunately.
Right, well, I've got the website address of the Seismologists Society in America. I'm just doing some work with them at the moment myself.
Oh, good stuff.
It's not to hand, if you want to drop me a line. And you can ask them whether rabbits run away from earthquakes. What you're saying is before the earthquake happens.
Yeah.
Rubbish. Mark calls from Banbury. Francis, hang in there. Mark, you're on Talk Radio. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Love your show.
Thank you. Animal testing.
Yeah, of course you should.
You should?
Yeah, they're all stupid. I've got a cat. I've had it for 3 years. Every morning, sits on the stairs.
Yeah.
You have to kick it down or it's going to trip up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they say about...
They do position themselves, especially if you're carrying a tray of tea.
Yep.
They do position themselves strategically, don't they?
And they say about birds and like how they have instinct to like fly abroad. Well, why do they fly into cars and hang around in the air above motorways, things like that, fly into patio windows? I wouldn't call that instinct. There's no ecology there, really, sort of getting on evolution. They're just stupid. You might as well use a bird or something like that instead of a human. We're better than them.
Yes, there was a deep flaw in the argument put forward by Chris a few moments ago, who said that thalidomide had been tested on animals, and I believe that is the case. But some of the problems with thalidomide weren't betrayed by that series of testing.
But they have to cut it down slightly, the odds,
Yes,
so.
yes, but one wonders how many treatments are rejected because complications do emerge during the source of animal testing, and that sequence of events isn't put before the public, partly because the public wouldn't be interested, quite frankly.
Also, the other chap who said about animals running away from hurricanes and earthquakes, well, how can they tell? Isn't there going to be nobody there?
No, exactly. And how do they know?
You're going to stand behind a volcano or something.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous idea, isn't it? You're out there in the prairie, and all of a sudden a jackrabbit goes flying along, right, 60 miles an hour, zoom, and then 2 days later there's an earthquake, and you say to your mate Bill over a Budweiser in the bar, guess what? I saw a jackrabbit running away from exactly where there was that earthquake yesterday, and
coincidence.
That is how urban myths develop.
Exactly.
You're a wise man, Mark.
Take care, Tommy.
See you in heaven. The future belongs to you.
Okay.
What a dear man.
Ideological purity in listener-appropriate language. Tommy Boyd.
I'm feeling incredibly intelligent today. It's funny how when you celebrate your own intelligence as a species, it seems to make you more intelligent. Francis calls from Wigan.
Hi, Tommy. Nice to speak to you.
Welcome to Talk Radio. I'm glad you rang.
Well, you've made my point for me. We're too intelligent for our own good, aren't we, really?
Go on.
Well, I mean, we're making a mess of things because of our intelligence. I mean, we are supposed to be more intelligent than the men, the kind of different species of men that came before us, and we're making a bigger mess than them. And they made a bigger mess than the apes, and so on.
There weren't enough Cro-Magnon men to make a mess of anything. There are only about 500 or 600 of them.
No, but come on, Tommy, you know I'm correct. You can't argue with this, can you, really? You've got to agree with me.
No, of course I can argue with this, Francis, because this is one of those back-of-the-matchbox sort of arguments, isn't it? We're making a mess of things. What are we making a mess of?
Well, why is the population increasing so much?
Well, didn't you listen to my programme on sex education?
I'm afraid I didn't listen to that one, actually. I listened to most of them. I must have missed that one.
Right, well, it's because we make love and have babies.
Yeah, but it's because we're getting rid of disease, we're living longer.
Yes. That's what you want to do, isn't it? Live longer?
Not particularly.
Well, do something about it then.
Such as what?
Smoke.
Well, no, that's a slow way to die, isn't it, really?
Yeah, well, you want a quick way?
Yeah.
Well, how far are you from the road?
That's not quite, that's messy. It upsets the drivers as well.
Well, in other words, you want to live as long as you can.
With good quality of life, yeah.
Yeah, like everybody else.
Correct, yeah.
And that's why the population is increasing, okay?
Yeah, but I mean, there's too many of us, Tommy.
Yeah, but you're just as bad as everybody else. You're one of them.
Yeah, it's true.
If you're worried about the population explosion, Francis, then, well, charity begins at home, doesn't it?
I think can I just say that James was right from Belfast or whatever it was. Animals do actually run away from earthquakes, you know.
Now, you don't know that either.
It's well known in China. It's been known for centuries.
Well, there's no such thing on this show as the well-known fact.
Well, in China, they do actually. They get signals from, they go off the animals, and, they know more about earthquakes than we do.
Shoe-menders, absolute shoe-menders. A tragic two-dimensional hope you have here, Francis, and look, it's gone. Animals do not run away from earthquakes. They just run. And some of them happen to be running away from the earthquake. And because people live and die by their hopes and dreams, they decide, these Chinese couple of people, urban myth, try and fool those idiots in the West, like you, that rabbits in China run away from earthquakes. How long before the earthquake do they run away?
I don't know the exact figure. You'd have to speak to someone from China, actually.
Oh, right. So if you want any more details, it's over to Beijing, is it?
I would imagine it's like a day or two before, something like that, Well, it's got to be it's got to be sort of pre-slight trembles, isn't it?
And how far away from the earthquake do they run before they actually stop and turn around and have a look?
Oh, I can't tell you all the details of that.
No. Getting a bit... getting a little bit complicated.
But you agree with the main point anyway,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, how long can we go on and get him, more and more? And
About 80 years, because then I won't be around, so why should I care?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your call.
Thanks, Tommy, anyway.
Yeah, lovely talking to you.
Nice. See you.
Good, wasn't it? Ring again.
Thank you.
Anne calls now from Penge. Anne, you're on Talk Radio.
Hi.
Penge.
I have to disagree with you because there are a whole lot of people who are considerably less intelligent than animals, and they keep ringing you up and telling you how intelligent animals are.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
They're thick, but they're not as thick as animals.
I think it's arguable myself.
No, it's not. Not seriously, is it? Not seriously. Not on a scale of things.
Well, okay, not on a scale of things.
It's like arguing that a pub team could beat Manchester United. You know in your heart of hearts that they couldn't, but it's kind of fun to kick the idea around.
On the other hand, no, animals are pretty sick.
Pretty sick or thick?
Thick.
They're pretty sick, some of the things they do. Look at cats with what they do to their prey. That's not on, is it?
No. I mean, their behaviour is all instinctive, as you say.
Yes, but it's despicable.
Well, yeah.
We invest so many human characteristics in our cats. Oh, she's so intelligent.
Yes.
She can open the door, she can open a tin of cat food.
You don't do that, and I don't do that.
No.
But some people do.
Yeah, they do. But then when the animal tears a mouse to pieces after torturing it for 2 hours and bites its head off and swallows it and leaves the rest on the kitchen floor, people say, "Oh, well, that's instinct."
Yeah.
You see, you can't blame them for that. Well, they're so clever. Have you seen the cat in the kennel meat advert? All that rubbish. And lovely to talk to someone from Penge. Where is Penge again?
It's near Crystal Palace.
All right.
It's very boring.
What is up with you lot?
Tommy Boyd.
John's in Peterborough. You're on Talk Radio, John.
Good afternoon, Thomas.
Good afternoon, Jonathan.
Unlike you to be biblical in the afternoon, seeking dominion over the animals, very unkind of you.
Biblical?
In the Bible, doesn't it say that we're superior, so we can then go and seek dominion over the animals? Isn't that where it all comes from?
Yes, but my argument isn't based on the Bible.
Well, that's the basic premise.
Not for me, it's not. Might be for you.
So, you are allegedly intelligent, so if I dropped you in the middle of the New Forest without a compass, you'd find your own way back then?
Of course I would. It's happened to me many times.
Okay.
There's that little pub. Do you know the New Forest?
Yeah.
There's that lovely little pub where if you're playing that fantastic cricket team that plays there of old men, have you played them? Oh, we used to go every year and play the old men of the New Forest. Their youngest player was 69 and their oldest was well into his 80s.
Really?
And you get the ponies and everything.
Stunning.
Yes.
But you could find your own way back?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll put you in the middle of the, where should we go next then? Somewhere geographical, 200 miles from home. You're not familiar, then I'll release you. And you can get your own way home.
Yes.
Successfully.
Yeah, what you're trying to say is that I'd have to think about it, whereas certain animals could do it instinctively.
You say instinctively, prove it. So even your common old garden, old trap square pigeon can navigate.
You know, John,
salmon up rivers?
Harking back to our last, that's not intelligence. That's just endemic behaviour.
Okay.
You know that's true.
So squirrels don't think when they're getting these...
No, they don't. No, they don't. No. They don't think out a problem, no. They're a set of reflex actions.
Okay.
They're a set of reflex actions, a response to a set of stimuli that their species has had put before it for millions of years, and just as Darwin explained, the ones who were clever at it survived a bit longer than the ones that couldn't do it, and that then just became a piece of innate... Write that word down, innate. Can you write?
Just unjoined up some days, yeah.
Innate. How do you spell it?
INATE?
No.
Okay, 2 N's.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Right, okay, so...
Yeah.
I won't layer that, but let's suppose that we're 50-50 on that.
No. No, you could...
All right, just to move it on.
You can't listen to a crushing, comprehensive point like that and say, oh, well, let's call it 50-50. Sorry.
Okay. Well, move it on then. Our finest minds.
Yeah.
Pollution. Ozone problems. Global warming.
You sound like Tony Blair, you know. You just use nouns and adjectives. New, labour, new, hope, children, people. Use some of the small ones and then you've got full sentences, John.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe you're trying to say that if we were so intelligent, why do we pollute the earth? Is that what your point is?
That's fine, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, you want me to make your point for you and answer it?
No, I'm asking you to answer that. If we are that good.
Yes.
Yeah? Explain why then our finest minds are responsible for the way that we do pollute, the way that we do rip the the earth up, it'll treat it. So that it does respond like with light.
Oh, you've been watching far too many John Craven's news rounds there, boy, you have. Yes, there is pollution. There's pollution every time you exhale, actually. That's a form of pollution. There's always byproduct from any form of activity. Where pollution occurs, it's because there is also an upside, which is a benefit, which sufficient people seek for whatever that activity is to be broadly beneficial, in brackets, usually profitable. But we can only do it, we can only pollute because we're intelligent. Free call 0500 10 53 89. In a moment, just ahead of a return to this essential discussion, we're going to open Listeners' Letters page. I'm Tommy Boyd, this is Talk Radio. There's a good argument for listening.
Page. Your thoughts, your comments, and your death threats.
Points of View. My show regularly covers the latest news and views from the world of mental health. Listeners often call up with personal contributions. Sometimes they find it simpler to drop us a line, like this lady.
Points of View. Dear Tommy, depression, clinical depression, as in manic depression, is usually indigenous depression, i.e. caused by a chemical imbalance in the brain and treated with medication. Depression caused by external events is reactive depression and happens to everyone. A mixture of both indigenous and reactive depression causes severe clinical depression like this. Best wishes, Anne Bloomberg.
Some listeners occasionally find odd moments in the show a bit exasperating, so they drop me a line with their wisdom.
Points of View.
Dear Mr. Thomas Pillock Boyd, you've fallen from a great height of television onto a commercial radio station because you've got all the screen presence of a fly that has landed on a piece of Talk Radio is going somewhere, but you're weighing it down like the heaviest of an anchor that your views are. You feed off the emotions of your listeners, and you're a poor imitation of James Whale. You're a leech, a curly-headed schoolboy who gets his kicks by making little remarks from the back of the class. I dare you to read this out, you lowlife. Oh, and I don't care whether you built a patio. You should have been buried underneath it. Best wishes, Trevor Isherwood, Colonel.
A recent show examined the mysterious world of dreams, and a few days later, this letter arrived from a young lady whose name we really ought to have changed.
Points of View. I just had to write to you. I had a dream featuring you a few weeks ago. You were in an office with two other men. You were facing me, and we were instantly attracted. Our eyes locked as if in a kiss, a gentle caress of imaginary lips. I could almost feel your warm breath fluttering the downy hair at the hollow of my neck. The sight of your silent silhouette, framed against the afternoon sun, drove a shudder of longing deep into my soul, fixed where they stood. And though my mind screamed for them to leave, my heart whimpered and moaned as a pageant of lusts unfurled in my bosom. Suddenly you spoke to the men. You said, "That will be all. Thank you for coming. Goodbye." Your words burst like a shaft of sunshine into a forest glade, and in the warm light, I saw us, entwined, a calypso of urgent, glistening, fragrant flesh. The men left, closing the door, leaving us alone. The room filled with the perfume of privacy, heavy and sweet from the warmth of our needs. I walked towards you, highly aroused. Just as you put your arms around me, I woke up. I was in a strange state for the rest of the day. I don't usually have such dreams, and I find it weird that I should have one about you. Yours sincerely, Sabrina Kavanagh. Long brown hair, green eyes, medium height, medium build.
Please send your hate mail and death threats to The Tommy Boyd Show, Talk Radio, P.O. Box 1089, London W1A 1PP.
Or send your email to
tboyd@talk-radio.co.uk. @talk-radio.co.uk. You tosspot.
Tommy Boyd Show. 10:53, 10:89 a.m. Talk Radio.
And
And we press on with a packed programme, but just one rear view mirror remark, and that is that all letters to the letters page are and must be genuine. Free call 0500 1053 89. We continue our discussion on animal testing by talking to Dave, who calls from Hales Owen.
You've annoyed me today, Tom. You've really annoyed me. Problem is, I do two things at once. I never do one. And I was doing two things one day. One was listening to the radio, and the other one was something else. And the radio wasn't the priority. But I suddenly, into my consciousness, came a report that Americans' biological researchers had found that we are connected with every other species on this planet. You can kill nothing on this planet. It's slow suicide.
Well, gastronomically connected with them, I suppose, Dave.
No.
There isn't anything we don't eat,
Biologically, we're biologically connected with every other life form on this planet. You can kill nothing.
Will you tell that to that fly on my stairs that I noticed this morning?
You must tell it to him yourself.
Well, I shan't.
You will.
He's already down the toilet.
Then that's a nail in your coffin, unfortunately.
Well, more of a nail in his, really.
Well, yes, it is, yes.
Yes, it is, yes.
Absolutely, but you will suffer at the end of the day. Kill nothing on this planet.
How am I going to suffer?
It's suicide. It's very slow. You're killing yourself. If you don't kill anything on this planet, you will not die yourself.
Right. Thanks, Dave.
That's fine.
Better get back to whatever it was you were doing whilst you were listening to the radio.
Putting my shirt on, it's on backwards. I've got to take it off again.
10:53 and 10:89 a.m. Talk Radio.
It's fascinating, isn't it? It's like a menagerie sometimes out there. Fiona calls from Kent. Fiona, welcome to Talk Radio.
Hi, just want to go, I'm going to backtrack first of all. You said about animals not having intelligence with regards to storms and things. I lived 30 years in Africa, and I think people who've lived in Africa would dispute that. You can have a perfectly clear day, beautiful day, wide open veldt, no storm in sight, and the animals will herd under the trees because they know there's a storm coming before we did.
Now, I've worked with animals in Africa. I'm glad you brought this up. In Kenya, mostly, in the Masai Mara. I don't know where you were.
No, I was in South Africa.
Ah, well, the wildlife isn't quite so good there, is it?
Where?
In South Africa.
Well, it's got one of the biggest game reserves in the world, but apart from that, it's fine.
But you don't have elephants in South Africa?
No, we just have a couple of 100,000.
And I think you have to understand an important point here, Fiona. What the animals are doing is instinctive.
Well, what is the difference between our intelligence and instinct? And
Well,
anyway, let's go on to intelligence.
I've explained that. I've explained that before, and
No.
I don't see why I should have to explain it again. Weren't you listening?
Listen, the reason I phoned was not actually for this, but another thing that you keep on about intelligence. I don't see what intelligence has got to do with our ability to be cruel or not. Are you implying then that if somebody is more intelligent than you, he should be better treated than you? In other words, if a child is sick or an adult is sick and not very intelligent, we have more right to be cruel to that person because they are deemed by some standard of society not to be intelligent, which is now the reason why I actually phoned was to say that if you really want to do testing, why the hell don't we do it on criminals? They are sitting there, they've murdered people, they've abused children. You're on about your children all the time, protecting your children. Well, then do something useful, like having somebody who's just really abused children. Do something for society.
You don't like men, do you?
On a human being, which is who is...
You don't like men, do you?
It was nothing to do with men.
What was nothing to do with
men? There are women who abuse children as well.
What was nothing to do with men?
I haven't mentioned the word men.
You said it was nothing to do with men.
No, you said I don't like men.
No, you don't.
Why?
Well, it's obvious.
Why?
You can tell.
Oh, really? You're psychic as well?
A little bit.
Oh, I'm so happy for you.
I bet you
now,
are
going
too.
back to the real essence of why I phoned is why cannot criminals be tested with these solutions?
Well, it's simple, because they might be innocent.
But animals are innocent.
Well, let's talk about
Have they done something wrong to society that they deserve to be tortured like that?
Possibly not.
No, well, then you cannot imply that, A, because they're not intelligent, they can be tortured, they can have cruelty done to them. No, and you cannot imply that they've done something wrong, therefore they merit
I'm not saying that animals are guilty or innocent.
Well, but then you say that somebody in jail...
It doesn't enter into the issue. An animal cannot be guilty, it cannot be innocent.
Oh, dogs can be guilty. My dog's guilty as hell when he's just pinched something off the dining room table. He understands guilt. He understands it very, very well. I don't even have to speak to him. He just look at him and he knows what he's done wrong.
Have you got many animals in your home?
I've had many animals in my life.
Mm-hmm. Do you prefer animals to people?
What? Of course.
It's the problem, isn't it, really? We must be the only species that tolerates so many fellows to our species who actively dislike and seek to damage members of their own species. What would a pack of lions do if there was one silly old lady lion who was constantly going around whacking all the other lions with a handbag because he'd been cruel to an antelope? Telling the lion that there's plenty of substitute soya antelope available down at the watering hole. You know, she'd be brown bread. They'd have her out. They would ostracize her, but we don't ostracize. We tolerate eccentrics and people haters. A free call 0500 1053 89. A word with Wilfred, who calls from County Down.
Good morning, Tommy.
Good morning, Wilfred. Thank you for your call.
Pleasure. I haven't had the pleasure of speaking to you before. This is my first time. Now, what I want to say is that in my case it would be the other way around. If I had to kill an animal, I'd have to practice on a human being. And the other thing as well is this. Why are we testing products on animals when we have enough subhuman species of our own? What about the...
You're talking about the riffraff here, aren't you?
Exactly.
The underclass.
Yes, I'm talking about the...
Trailer trash.
Yes. The football fan, the fat-belly tattooed bloke who runs around with a big beer belly chanting and causing mayhem. Why don't we test him?
Well, I would... But personally, I would draw the line at suggesting that football fans these days are riffraff. You obviously haven't been to a match lately, Wilfred, or ever, in fact.
I have never been to a match. I don't take any interest in football at all.
Well, it shows, if I may say so.
But I have certainly watched them on television, and particularly around the time of the World Cup, and I saw plenty of species that could have been tested.
They were Germans.
Oh, no.
Yes. It was Germans in France 98.
Don't be racist.
It was Germans. I'm sorry, but it was. The hooligan element at France 98 was provided by Helmut Kohl's lot, not Tony's.
Well, I mean, we could always... It doesn't matter what the nationality is. And what about these neighbours from hell on the St. Council estates?
They're the ones.
They don't know where to put them. Why don't we test them?
Well, perhaps the pharmaceutical companies are secretly testing on them, Wilfred.
I sincerely hope so.
And I hope the tests are unsuccessful, don't you?
Yes, indeed. I mean, those poor little animals, I mean, they are of far higher intelligence and of far more useful and productive than some of the rubbish that we have on this planet that we call the human species.
Wilfred, you must call again. I'm grateful for your wisdom. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Tommy.
Free call 0500 1053 89. I'm recruiting a panel. I'm Tommy Boyd. This is Talk Radio. There's a good argument for listening.
Don't forget to subscribe and like. Comment too if you wish. Even slap your legs and make a purchase from Ann Summers. But don't do nothing.